When you think growing up on the internet, what's the first image or memory that pops into your head?
For some reason, I go to like the old gaming websites, like Club Penguin, Girls Go
Yeah.
Gaming, Neopets, Moshi Monsters, Moshi. Those games, that's where I go to when I think of like growing up on the internet.
Yeah, no, 100%. Um, all of those are the same for me. The only difference is cool math games as well. Because we'd all tell our teachers, oh, these are math games, and we all knew they weren't. What were the first websites or platforms you were obsessed with as a kid or teenager?
Um, my first like introduction to social media would have been like MSN. That was really fun. But like actually properly online would have been Tumblr. That was my go-to. I had like the cool layouts and everything. That was fantastic. Loved that. And then it just kind of like my age group is very much kind of the first age group. I say that with kind of leeway either side, to be like heavily on social media. So like Facebook was the go-to to have all of your friends from school on it. And you'd start poke wars and you'd have all of these like back and forth messages, or the popular boys would message you after school even though you weren't popular at school and they can't associate their reputation with that.
Yeah. But, like, talking about Tumblr and stuff, did you ever have, like, a secret online life that you sort of hid from your parents, like fan accounts or just something that they didn't really know you were into?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Who didn't, right?
However, however, over the years it's been made obvious. I've now got no shame in the fact that I had or have fan accounts. But yeah, back then I was very much like, no, I only talk to like my real life in-person friends on all of these things. No.
No.
I had people from all over the world on all of my social medias since I was like 12, maybe younger.
Yeah. No, I get that because, like, for me, that was like sort of a moment where I realized, oh, there are other people out there like me because, I mean, I come from small little New Zealand and there just aren't many people who understand that fan culture. So, again, I also never had it because you really can't. It's quite obvious. But can you remember a specific moment where you realized, hey, there are people like me in these spaces?
I think for me would be when I first had Stan Twitter. I think that was the most like obvious one because I went in there with like my personal name and stuff like you would, but in my old like my first ever Twitter username was Toya underscore 1D. And I went on there because it was at the time of One Direction being on X Factor, and I was allowed to vote for them for the first time in my life. I was ever allowed to vote on X Factor. So I used that platform to like talk about One Direction. And then from that, obviously loads of stuff. You're opening this whole like new world. And now it has snowballed and now I'm just a five sauce fan everywhere online. But it's now all on my personal accounts anyway. Like I've learned to kind of marry the two and be like professional and a fangirl and like my love for music, and it's all just kind of like hodgepodged into one thing.
Yeah. I mean, especially in my story as well, I find that growing up online with fan accounts, especially like the One Direction and 5 Seconds of Summer fan spaces, really did build this creative culture where you see a lot of those people who were fans of those bands in the early days sort of marry that into their career. So, how would you say these fan spaces did sort of shape your creative narrative online?
I genuinely do not believe that I would be where I am right now if it wasn't for my love for the bands that I do love. Like, the reason I pursued photography is because of the concerts that I've been to, and I went, that looks like something I'd really love to capture. So I went, I'll try my hand at it, and now I do that. And then it's the same with the fact that I just finished my university course. live event management. That's what it's called, which is all about touring, festivals, logistics, live events. That is also something I wouldn't have done had it not been for the fact that I love photography and had it not been for the fact that I love live music and like it all kind of links back to live music and I wouldn't have like had a space to talk about that had I not had these like online accounts.
Yeah. No, I completely get that because if we're going to talk about like that sort of experience and monumental moments, I mean, for me, I actually joined Lloyd's workshop. Lloyd being Lloyd Wakefield, who toured with Harry Styles, and that was a big moment of like these are all of these people giving you industry knowledge on something that I've always wanted to do. But then in terms of actually building this platform, I guess I saw a lot of like modern musicians and modern bands and what they were doing with podcasts and magazines, um, just the way that they could really express themselves and be themselves within interviews. And that's what sort of made me go, okay, what stories are my photos telling? What stories are all of my media I put out there telling in terms of their media for these people that I love so much? Especially, we've seen a few of these people get really unfair treatment within the media, not just the bands we've previously mentioned, but other artists I love. And so I wanted to create a space where that didn't happen. But speaking about like how the media like perceives people, did you ever feel pressure to sort of like perform online, especially within your arts?
Um, in ways, yes, but I mean like going on to the like fan account type culture, that in itself is a very like performative thing because you kind of have to play into the fact that you're this like big fangirl. Like I have these moments, I get notices quite a lot, whatever, like I don't it's not like I'm bragging about it, it just happens. And I always feel that there's a pressure on me to have to scream and cry about it and be like, "Oh my God, this is so cool." Whereas I just see it happen and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then I move on. Because like, yeah, it's exciting for me and it brings me so much joy, but that's for me and like my little moment and my happiness. I feel like I shouldn't have to scream about it to everyone else and be like, "Look what's happened." Because like it's me, it's for me, it's fine, don't worry about it. So there is kind of like a pressure in that sense of like you do have to be a lot louder than maybe you typically would be in real life about certain things. Like I love the bands I love the artists that I love, and I'm not really very loud about any of it. Like I just stream their music, I just go to their shows, I've got tattoos for them, but I'm very rarely online, kicking my feet, giggling, twirling my hair, like hee 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 hee. All of these artists that I love so dearly, you'll just see me at a concert one day and go, "Oh, okay, she likes that artist," and it's that's how it is.
Yeah. No, I think one thing that like I've always remembered is they're human and would you like it if people were so in your face about you as well? And
Hmm.
the moment that really made me realise not everyone sees it that way is in the new docu-series about Taylor Swift. Um, it literally cut from a scene where the fans were like, it's almost like she's not human, and then she's in the dressing room with Ed Sheeran and she's like, I feel hunted lately, and he's saying like it's like they forget within this big tour you're still human, and that's one thing that like I really agree with, that it's really hard to have these like fan accounts and fan spaces and still not feel like you're invading someone's personal space or you're like become this big over the top blown out version of yourself that like screaming, crying, throwing up, oh my goodness, I'm dead. Like, that's just not how it is. You can love a band, an artist, and not have to be like that.
And I do,
Yeah.
yeah, and off of that as well, it's like whenever I've met celebrities, I've always been the kind of girl that's like, don't scream at them, don't cry at them, just like say hi, ask how your day's going, and like ask if you can get a photo, ask if you can get a hug, ask if you can do these things, rather than just assuming that you can because that's where they are in their job. And I've been with a few people like in these situations where the band has been in front of me and I've just been like, hey, how are you, whatever. And I've built really good relationships with some bands and some artists because of how I act with them. I do treat them like a human being. And I don't want to say that I'm proud of that because like that should just be the bare minimum. It's not like I'm
Mm,
doing this amazing thing. That should just be how people treat other people. But I've been with people who do then scream and cry, and I've immediately gone, whoa. Because you see, if you're like tuned into it enough, you see the difference in behavior with how the artist is with their fans, depending on how that fan acts.
mm,
If you're pushing boundaries or stepping over the line or doing something that's really overwhelming to them, again, like you said, put yourself in their shoes. Would you like how that feels? I would hate if someone was screaming and crying in my face. I get very overwhelmed, very overstimulated very
yeah,
quickly. Should someone scream and cry in my face and be like, oh my God, I love you so much, tears falling and shoving a phone in my face, I'd be like, that's enough. Thank you. I don't think I want a photo with you, actually. So I do always make sure that I'm respectful and quiet and just ask them how life is, how their day's going, what's going on. Can I get a hug? Can I
mm,
get a photo? Cool. If not, can we just have a chat? Cool. The amount of times I've met some people and I've not got it documented because they've either said no or I've not even thought to ask because I'm too indulged in the conversation to think about it.
yeah. I think the key to like fan behavior is this is not some person on a pedestal that you're holding up to here and can do no wrong. When I say that I am truly a fan of someone, that is someone whose their work, whether that's music, whether that's paintings or any other art form, their work stirs something in me to cause me to create something myself. So when I meet these people in person, it's thank you for your art, it's so inspiring. Maybe a hug, not really, because I don't even really like hugs. And it's like, thank you so much for what you've contributed to the creative world. Bye. Thinking about like your creative journey yourself, what was the first art piece that you did put out there on the internet?
I, oof. So the first thing I did in terms of like what I'm passionate about was in 2018, I went to a 5 Seconds of Summer show and I was barrier and I took photos on my phone, which I don't, but controversially, I don't believe is a form of photography. I believe that anyone can take a good photo on their phone because it's in the phone's nature to do so. When you're with a camera and you have the equipment, that's different. That's on you and your skill and how you use it. A phone automatically has that all built in. You can just go and it's done. Anyways, side tangent. I was taking some photos on my phone and I think I got some like half decent photos of Five Sauce just because I was so close. So they were so clear.
Mm,
And I sent that to a friend at the time and was like, hey, genuinely, feedback. This is kind of something I want to do. Is it worth pursuing this? Or should I just like not bother? And they said, this is actually really quite good considering it's on your phone. I think you should pursue it. And then like a week later, I bought a camera and I've never looked back.
yeah. So I similarly knew I wanted to do photography, but at this point, there were no options to do concert photography because I was living in a small place in New Zealand. But I was doing my NCA level 2 photography. And it was during the times of COVID, and I was doing a series on mental health. And there was like a really strong sort of level of engagement with my actual final artboard. And so I decided to make an Instagram account and just start posting it. And I got a lot of attention from that, sort of built a following. And that's when I sort of realized, hey, people care more than just the people who know the story behind this. So I started doing self portraits and just turning myself into these different characters. And it's not quite music photography, but I then started sort of moved those characters and worlds into how can we create characters and worlds that are music related or fashion related and sort of start pushing myself into more of these events. Um, so yeah, like on that note of sharing with friends and stuff, how has the feedback from strangers online sort of shaped your creative identity online?
I find that strangers are actually more supportive. Um, I have like a mental log of my friends and family who have supported me, and it's surprising how many don't. And it's not that they are like outwardly being like, "Ooh, no, I hate that." It's just that I can see that you're viewing my story. I can see that you're looking at my posts and you're not interacting. I go out of my way personally to interact with my friends' art if they're doing anything, be that they're making a silly little TikTok of an outfit haul, or they're making concept photography, or they're doing blog posts, whatever it is, I try and be there for my friends. Um, to not have that reciprocated sometimes is quite intense. Like it's quite a like reflective feeling, and you're like, oh, I don't think you support me in the way that I support you, and I don't know if that's the right energy I need in my life. But strangers, especially when you're photographing an artist that's like quite big or has quite a big fan base, I find that some of my photos do really well if it's a well-known artist. Like my photos of Youngblood do quite well every time.
Mm.
And my photos of One OK Rock do really well every time because the fan bases are so just in there and they want every little bit of content they can possibly get out of everyone, that when a new bit of content drops and it happens to be my content, it just floods. It completely floods. And I think that's really fascinating because these people don't know me. I don't know them, but they see my art, they see my photos and they go, I like that. And then they show me that they like that. And I'm like, oh, love you. That's so cute. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that because both in terms of my art and in terms of being the one who posts all of these articles and stories for the Groovy Moo, um, for both the photography and the Groovy Moo, I know that I have 4 friends and family members who the second something drops, they are liking, they are sharing. And then I've got other friends who sort of like and share something that they appreciate, but not everything. That's cool. But something that I did find is there are certain names that, whether that's an actual interview or article with them and only them, or they're even just slightly mentioned in something, that's really gonna like suddenly you've got all this attention coming on that one post. Like that interview I did with Callum Hood blew up. So on that note, what's something beautiful that only happened because you've been on these online spaces?
Pretty much anything.
Mm.
Like, I do owe my entire like creative world to online. I wouldn't be able to have the opportunities I have if it would not be online. I wouldn't be able to go to the shows that I go to if it didn't have a platform online. Like, there are so many things that happen because either I took that like initiative to be online or to pursue it online or get invited to go to these things because of my presence online. So it's really a lot that I have to owe, a lot that is beautiful because of online. Um, but like I just wouldn't be in this career because I where would I put my photos? Where?
Mm.
Would I sit there with posters and be like, "Hey, look." No, you don't do that.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think if I was to sit down and write thank you notes to everyone who has given me the career that I have, there are a lot of people who would be expecting to get those letters. The reality is, there are certain musicians, there are certain photographers, and then there are certain creative friends online who, in one way or another, have either inspired, influenced, or just been like a constant support. Where it's like, you are the reason why I did this and didn't go and work at some supermarket or go and take an internship somewhere else. Um, because, like you said, the internet is sort of your shop window. You're not going to buy a gallery when you've now got to pay rent for a building that you're not sure anyone's going to walk into, but nothing's stopping that 16-year-old from starting an Instagram and posting their photos and getting an event. Nothing's stopping the person with a fan account from then going from fan art to getting commissions for something bigger and better and just keeping on growing. We also oftentimes you see someone who auditions for some sort of music show, and there's there's a category of people who go on The Voice, who were Directioners, who were Swifties, who were, and so it's very important that we don't forget that, is that the sort of fan to creative pipeline is a big thing. And yeah, before you ever held a camera, what were you doing in online spaces that related to where you wanted to go?
Um, Nothing. Genuinely nothing. Online, I wasn't making any moves whatsoever in terms of my photography. However, I did study photography at secondary school. I then went into college and studied media. I then went into university to study live event management. So like it's kind of always been there as this like nagging voice being like, do something with this, do something. But online, I've never done it other than like supporting my favorite photographers. So like these names that I just love and adore, and the photos that they take, I just love and adore. And all I've really done is like and comment and share all of that stuff and gone, this is what I really want to do one day. This is what I really want to do one day. Um, until I picked up a camera, I didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, I was really weird in the way that I learn, is that I like to watch things over and over again until I understand concepts. So from about the age of 14, I think, I would watch music videos and write down every sort of technique I could find, or I'd look at, like, I'd bookmark different photos that I liked and write down what it is that I'm seeing and what's making me react to it. And then, if I couldn't figure out what was done, I used to reach out to different people and be like, what did you do here? So when I joined Lloyd's workshop, it was really great in the sense that I could outright ask him what he'd done. And that's when I was like, I need a film camera, which I've now got. And I was like, and I really need this lens and that lens. Like, I just really took what he said sort of as this is exactly what you need. But then in the same way, there were artists who I didn't know, but if you genuinely love what they're doing, they are so willing to tell you. To the point that one day I was setting up to do a music video, and there was something I really liked in one of the music videos I'd seen for 5 Seconds of Summer. And so I looked in the credits and I see Andy DeLuca, and I'm like, I'm just gonna shoot him a message. I'm just gonna ask and see what happens. So I think I shot him an email in the end. And I was like, hey, I'd love to learn about your process. And even though the times didn't end up working, he did respond. He's like, hey, I'd love to talk about this some more. And it's just the fact that in these creative spaces, you have access to the entire world. You can ask these creatives directly what they did. Versus if you go to an art gallery, you can't ask the person at the gallery, hey, would you happen to know what technique this person used? They're not going to know, and chances are you can't suddenly go on a wild goose hunt to find their contacts and ask. So yeah.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Also, you mentioned Andy DeLuca. He is one of my biggest cheerleaders. Every time I do something in photography or I message him about something and go, look, I just did my first this, I just did my first this. This photo shoot has taken off. Look at this. He is always so proud of me and he is always like rooting for me and backing me and I love that man so much. So,
one of the ladies who shot for Harry, like shot I think it was a Vogue cover. Um, I responded to her story and I was like, work like this is exactly why I'm studying photography. Um, and she was like, oh my goodness, that's so amazing, you've made me cry. And that is the one thing that I really held on to, as I was like, this is a Vogue photographer who's shooting for people like Harry Styles, and she said, you will do well in life. And I was like, that's all I need.
that's what gets me with Andy is there was one time I messaged him like a really long message about why he inspires me, why I do what I do, because he is the reason that I do it. And he responded, and I something in my message, I said something to him that was like, I want to be like you when I grow up. And it's a play on words because I'm already 27 and he's only in his 30s. Like there is not really any growing up to do, but like
Mm.
in the sense of I look to him as a mentor. And he responded to me a big fat message as well. But he said in his message, he was like, "You don't want to be me when you grow up. You want to be you when you grow up." And I was like, "Oh, okay, okay."
Yeah.
And yeah, I that's a message that I've screenshot and I have it as my home screen sometimes. For should I just want a reminder, I just read it and I'm like, wow, like that means the world to me because he is the reason I do what I do. And to have that response and to have him as one of my biggest cheerleaders blows my mind.
Mm. Exactly. And that's how social media can be so good for these creative spaces is you would not otherwise have that opportunity. Um, it's just so special to creatives to have that support, but also just like someone who you're not trying to like so much be when you develop in your creative career, but even some people who you just like see a bit of yourself in them to the point that I'm about to surprise you here. I actually used you as one of my case studies in my last assessment because I saw you as someone who was really similar to my own story and had the traits that I really wanted to discuss. So
Oh. You have to show me that. What the
I
hell?
will. I will definitely show you. Really intentional with the creatives I bring on. Like, I've seen you online, I have interacted a couple of times, and I know sort of in my head what you're like as a creative. Um, like when you sent me your links, and I was like, "Oh, thank you," and acted like I'd never seen them before. I'd clicked already. Like I knew exactly. I was just like, "Wow, thanks. I'll have a look." Meanwhile, they were opening another tab.
No, for anyone listening, this is genuinely shocking because I have genuinely had no idea this was a thing.
Yeah,
I genuinely shook to my core. What the hell?
yeah. Just
There I am
like
going, I'm sorry if my website isn't quite nice enough. Like, sorry, here you go. And you're like, "I've been looking at it for 3 weeks already. Don't know what you're on about."
but it's in the same sense that like one of my like creative friends, Cassie, from Australia, like she sent me something at one point and was just like we were talking backwards and forwards, and I go to her for advice quite a lot as well. Um, and when I've included her in different projects, I knew like I've seen you online. I see how you interact with people who go to you for advice as well, and that's one thing I really look for is not just like that your work's to a certain standard of not shot on a potato, but also like if someone is in your comments asking you what did you do, because I know for myself what it was like when I was begging someone give me a chance, and so it's really important to me when you do see these teenagers who are studying it in high school and they come to you and go, you know, what are you doing? How did you get to where you're at? If you turn them away, it says to me you've forgotten where you came from, because
Hmm.
we all start at nothing. So it's not just about now you're there. It's like now you're there. Are you going to help others get there as well?
And I always try and be really like brutally honest, which some people can't handle when they're getting like, when they're going to me and asking for advice and they're going, "How did you do this?" I'm
Mm.
like, honestly, you are going to get turned away so many times. You're going to get told so many times, told no so many times. Do not take it personally. It will never be a case of, "I hate your work. I think it's ugly." It's more of a, "We're overbooked. We're oversubscribed. We just can't fit you in. We've got too many people. You're not quite where you need to be. You just need to graft. You just need to keep going." If I stopped when I got told no the first time, I I wouldn't be shooting arenas like I am. I wouldn't be shooting some of my favorite artists. I've built really good relationships with some of my favorite artists' managers just because I'm always in their DMs or their emails going, "Hey, me again. Um, can I come in?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." But the first couple of times they'd have been like, "I don't know who you are. No." And then you just have to prove yourself. You just have to keep working. You just have to keep proving yourself. You need to experiment with your editing. You need to have a play with your camera settings. You need to find a style that you really like. Personally, I love a good close up of individual people.
Oh
Even
yeah.
if I'm shooting a band, I want to get this member, I want to get this member, I want to get this member, because that stems from me being a fangirl and wanting my favorite member in content. So I know that when people come to my account, they're looking for their favorite member. So that's how I shoot. I shoot through the lens of a professional, but through like the soul of a fangirl, because I know what people are looking for. I know what these fangirls are looking for. So that's what I try and do when I'm shooting people with a camera, not a gun.
Yeah, exactly. But I get what you mean though, because that's also developed my style is I see a lot of professionals and they're like color edits. But as a fan I would always be like, you can't see their face properly because of this color edit. So the way I always shoot is I'm like, first I look for an emotion because what did I always used to think when I looked at different people's photos? I'd be like, why is the photographer taking this photo when the drummer looks like they're straining or the guitarist looks like they would rather be anywhere but there? So what emotion does my shot portray? And then the next thing I look for is how do I enhance that story? So is there a colouring thing I can do without blowing it out? Um, but also, like, I really look for community. So if Luke's walking over and he's drumming his guitar next to Michael, then there's a fan interaction there. Or if I'm at some big event and I don't know, say I'm at a wedding and the bride's talking to her little sister who's the flower girl, like those real connection moments. But in the same way, it's not just the people who you'd expect, but also turning the camera around. There's a fan who's like really having a deeply emotional moment. That's it's how does this event feel? How does this moment feel, and how do I capture that forever? So
I've
I
got one of
100%
my
agree.
Yeah, one of my favorite photos that I've got isn't of any artist, it's of a crowd member, and he had his favorite member's name written on his hand, and I always like to turn around to the barrier and take photos of people on the who are there because that's like you said, that's the emotion, that's the story that's being told. A lot of people get camera shy, so whatever, like a lot of people get camera shy, so sometimes it doesn't work out, but when it does and it looks great, this one guy had his favorite member's name written on his hand and he's looking into my lens and he's just like, but he's like this with the name. I'll have to show you the photo later because I think it's stunning. But
Yeah,
there's also been moments where I'm like laying underneath a band and they're all like towering over me to get this like specific shot of them just looking cool. And like you said about weddings, I shot my first wedding. It's my best friend's wedding, so there was a lot of pressure, but also in the same breath, no pressure at all because it's my best friend. Um, but a lot of pressure to do good by my best friend. And there are some moments in the photos that her or her husband are looking at each other, or one of them's looking at the other one, and the amount of love that is just on their faces. I look at the photo album of this of my friend's wedding and I just think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world because the husband, they're both so in love with each other, but the husband is so down bad for that woman. He is smitten and it's in the photos that you can really see it because she'll be looking at me and she's locked in. She's like, I need to, you're right, she's stunning for the camera. And he's just above her looking at her like, with the most absolute love in his eyes. And I'm like, oh, she doesn't even know he's looking at her like that.
yeah,
And then she sees the photos and she's like, does he always look at me like that? And I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
he.
Is I informed my uncle when he was getting married. I don't care what you say. The one thing you will regret on your wedding day is not having enough photos. So I'm family. I'm already at the front. I'm bringing my camera, and he was fine with that. But my favorite photo that I took is not one that you'd necessarily frame on your wall. You could look at that as a professional and think, it's slightly off center and everything because literally I just saw the emotion and I snapped it. But that sort of that is the story. Um, and I've got other photos where the two of them are absolutely just like stunning couple, but it wasn't about that in the moment. So I know what you
But yeah,
mean.
it's about capturing the like realness of it and the rawness of it. If it's too staged, yes, it's still going to be a stunning photo. That's inevitable because you've staged it to be like that. It's in the moments between those stages that you really get your best content.
This is quite dark, but years from now, when you're looking at the archives and this performer's passed, or this performer's no longer touring, or this family member's passed, what do you want to remember? My photography story actually starts with the fact that the first camera I ever used was my grandfather who passed. Have you ever felt gatekept in the pit or in the industry, and did social media make that better or worse for you?
I don't think so. Only because I don't think anyone really knew that I was into it until I was on social media. So there was nothing really to gatekeep.
Mm.
But I imagine if I'm ever big and famous one day as like this really cool photographer manifesting, um, maybe someone will try and gatekeep me and maybe I'll enjoy it for a while. For a while until I'm like, no, stop it. Stop it now. Share my stuff.
Yeah, I've not felt that with my photography because like there's just not enough work that I'm doing with where I live. At least not in concert world. But what I did see, and it cracked me up, is because I've done it. I've been someone who I pulled out my phone and we were talking at a barbecue last week about different musicians that I love. And I turned around and I snatched my phone back and I was like, you're not going to see that one. Too good. Gatekeeping. I want to buy concert tickets. But what really made me laugh is I saw like someone talking about New Zealand media. I care, so I type in keywords to sort of check how the Google is going. And I typed in New Zealand media and I saw that someone had commented on different magazines they like, and someone was like, the Groovy Moo's really good, but that's for me, I'm gatekeeping. And to see my name compared to like that's good, I'm holding that for me, I'm gatekeeping, was hilarious because I never sort of thought that I would get to a point where people would gatekeep that, and I was just like, this is hilarious. Um, but in the same way, I also sometimes get sad at gatekeeping because there are some musicians where I'm like, I really don't want to have to struggle to buy tickets for them, but I know that they have so much to offer, and I can't wait for their moment. So
Mhm.
yeah,
That's how I am with like quite a lot of international artists for me because I love them to bits and I really want them to tour here. But to tour here, that means you have to be a certain level of big.
mm.
And I don't think I want you to achieve that yet.
Yeah,
Because like for now you're mine and I love you and I enjoy you. Like for example, Joe Keery, DJO, he did his first ever UK tour this year.
yeah,
I've been listening to that man for like years. And he did his first ever UK tour this year. Granted, he is massive as an actor. He's obviously in like some of the biggest shows in the world, Stranger Things. He's also in some
yeah.
of the most iconic movies ever. But as like a singing musician artist, he's he's this big. He's this big. And for him to come over to the UK for the first time ever this year, I was like, this is fantastic. Yay. Got tickets quite easily. That was great. But then I was like, oh, that only means you're getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm. That's been me on the mic. Have a groovy week.